Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Think Academy YouTube channel. My name is Candy. I'm with Think Academy. I'm currently a grade 2 teacher and I have experience with teaching lower grade school kids as well as the Math Kangaroo. So today we'll be talking about the Math Kangaroo 2022, the mock deep analysis for our previous mock exam, as well as to teach you how to prep for the upcoming 2022 Math Kangaroo competition. Okay, so let's get started. And first of all, I just want to give you a brief introduction about what is Math Kangaroo. First of all, Math Kangaroo is a very popular lower school competition. So it's particularly for grade 1 all the way actually to grade 12, and it has different levels. So the most popular for lower grade as well. So currently California has the most participant and normally holds on the third weekend of March. So in 2022, the Math Kangaroo competition will be holding on March 17th, and it will be available for both online as well for on-site. For the previous year, there are 31,000 participants participated in the Math Kangaroo, and Think Academy is one of the hosting testing centers for it. And for level 1-2, it actually stands for grade 1 and grade 2 students. And this is a 75 minutes exam. The full score for level 1-2 is 96. And there are actually 3 different points for receiving the 96 points category. So there are 3-point question, 4-point question, and 5-point question. Normally it's breaking down to every 8 questions that will have different points. Therefore, if you receiving the most full score, that would be 96 scores. And for grade 1 students and grade 2 students, actually they are taking the same exam paper. And for that, don't worry that you're thinking your grade 1 students are participating or compete with the grade 2. No worries, because for receiving the rewards, that will be actually receiving by their current grade. So they're actually going to be breaking down to your grade, and you will be grading as well as receiving your awards based on your current grade. So do not be worried about that. Okay. So for the Math Kangaroo, we call this the very fun math competition, as well as a very super long competition. It's a 75 minutes competition, and there are a lot of fun and tricky questions, actually making the kids to think, and also involved with various modules. So we say the Math Kangaroo is a very fun but challenging competition, and it's very popular for among the lower school grade kids. So Think Academy has a very strong team, and for our content team, we actually studied for the past different modules. So we actually studied the past couple years as well as over to 15 years exams and competition, and we list all the different modules for each single questions. Upon that, we noticed within the math competition, there are several different modules that's very popular occurring in the exam. There are word problem, there are geometries, and there are the logical thinking, as well as the calculation. Those are the heavy modules that's appearing over and over in the level 1 to level 2. So upon that, we actually put in the very popular mock exams. That's for all the students to test it out for all of the questions. So among those, we actually follow the Math Kangaroo real distributions. So we hope the students can get the real feelings for Math Kangaroo, as well as they can find the fun in that competition. Okay, and also on that, we studied the level 1 to level 2 very high frequency problems within the popular modules. For example, for level 1 to level 2, there are a lot of geometry questions that involving cutting, 3-dimensional shapes, rotation, and symmetries, as well as for pattern. And for word problems, often talk about equivalent problem, the space problem, lineup problem, sum and difference, as well as some pattern problems. And for the number theories, often testing students for their calculation. So there are a lot of mixed operation, exchange equivalents, as well as to testing the student if be able to make some small calculations as well. And in the combinations, there are some number wheels fun problems, the puzzle shapes, as well as we'll talk about direction problems. And many students actually see those similar questions in our mock test. And now we're gonna go in and talk a little bit more about this mock exam. So this is actually our round 3 mock exam, and for the past 2 rounds, if you're interested, you can go back and go to join us on the WeChat or on the WhatsApp that you want to participate in the previous mock exam. For this round 3, we can actually looking into the different modules, and I'm going to give you a little bit more on the datas. So first of all, just in level 1 to level 2, we have over 274 students participated with us in this round 3 mock test. And we can see among 75 minutes for this live exam, the student joined us on Zoom, they open the link and they start taking the test. The average time spent is actually only 23 minutes. And the average score for this 274 students is 64 out of 96. And putting back into different points questions, so point 3, point 4, and point 5. You can see the accuracy percentage is starting to decrease from 86% and down to 51%. And then we can see that when we're moving on to harder and harder questions, the accuracy rates start to drop. And this is what we really should focus if your kids is aiming for receiving medals and receiving good scores and actually having a chance to win in point 4 and point 5 question that you should be focusing on. So among with our mock test module distribution, we actually really followed with the real competition. Now we put a lot of logical thinking, and as we can see, we also study for the past test, and we can see when we're moving on to the past 5-point questions that now starting to getting a lot of more logical thinking and word problems. So that's why in this round of module that we have a lot of more logical thinking and word problems, and that's showing up in our mock test. And in geometry as well and calculation, also is a very popular rising module for the statistics. As we can see, the distribution in the very beginning, the accuracy rate is quite high, and we have several 8 problems, question 6, question 10, question 15, question 18, 19, 23, and 24, and you can see the accuracy is extremely low. And within this 8 questions, there are actually 5 problems that's within the 0.5 range. So as we can see, when we're moving on to the end of the exam and end of the towards the paper, the accuracy start to getting lower and lower, and the student need to really focusing on how to improving that and be able to score high at the end of the exam. So let's look more into detail to look at some questions. So first of all, we know there's some high frequency wrong problems within this calculation module. So actually in this calculation question, this is only often appear in point 3 and point 4 with number and operation. And here is a very cool numbers flower that students should be able to calculate. And here, actually it's not hard for students to calculate, however, student is a little bit confused when they are having a little bit trouble of following, as well as they don't really know what's going on. And also we have to read the question clearly, it's asking for the last flowers. So for students, when they're doing the calculation module, especially for grade 1 and grade 2, for the level 1 and level 2, students should know how to make number bigger and smaller. What sign is making the number getting bigger and smaller? Don't think this is a very easy question, but actually in the class, we can see when we ask the student, oh, the number is getting bigger. What sign is making the number bigger? So it's the plus sign and the multiplication sign. And what sign is making the number smaller? It's the subtraction and division sign. Also, not only they should know what sign is making the number changing, also they should be able to calculate. And for grade 1 student, they should be able to know a little bit of the small multiplication. For example, 3 times 4, 4 times 5, or they should know multiplication is another way of addition, so they be able to calculate that within the level 1 to level 2 exam. Lastly, they should also know about the place value, and they can do some small column addition and subtraction. for them to help them on the calculation module. And on the second part, this is actually showed up in the mock test as well. So we have the special imagination problem, often appear in the point 3 to point 4 questions. This is actually the question 6 and question 8 that we see the student often having the mistakes on. So for the special imagination, actually, you can see that's the fun of Math Kangaroo, is that they have a lot of colorful questions, a very tricky question. So for student on this, and they should be able to observe the pattern, and at home or even at an exam, or they see that in their daily life, they should use objects to help them be able to understand what the question is asking, and it helps them to putting into the direct match. Also, don't be scared to try for this special imagination. It's very important that students to try and put in the shape. For example, here they can actually tracing the pattern in this empty shape, and for the student be able to know. Okay, and for the special imagination, I think for younger kids, it's easier to develop, and they'll be able to look at a lot of Legos. They can see a lot of different shapes, and in daily lives, mom and dad, you can ask them about what direction are we turning now, and where is on the corner left, so be able to identify the directions as well as where they're going. Okay, and I want to emphasize for the following 2 high frequent wrong problems that showed up in the mock test. First is the word problem. So here is actually the word problem that's in the mock test, and in the real exam, word problem often very emphasizing in point 4 and point 5. So here, this is a typical lineup problem that we're talking about. Cassie and Danny are lining up to buy donuts. Cassie is the 13th person counting from the front, and Dennis is the 14th person counting from the back. There are 6 people counting from Cassie to Dennis. Cassie is in front of Dennis. How many people are lining up? First of all, for word problem, this is especially challenging for lower school grade kids. Although everyone has a very fabulous reading skills, but reading a comic book or reading a storybook is not the same as reading a math word problem. So for the student be able to success about reading a math word problem, it is very, very important. First, they should be able to understand all the words that's showing up here. Second, I highly recommend the student be able to circle the important information when they see a word problem. Who is the main character? What are they doing? And also emphasizing the last question. What is the question asking? How many people are lining up? And particularly for this lining up problem, there's a couple of key little points they should be know. For example, Cassie is in front of Dennis. So this is very important in the daily life. You can ask them, okay, Cassie is in front of Dennis. Do I have to include Cassie? Do I have to include Dennis? So when we're looking at in front of Dennis, actually we do not count Dennis into this question. So that's the tricky part. And also after they understand this particular little words from the word problem, and also they should be able to draw this out. And you can take a look at an example. Actually, this lining up problem is a question that we talked about in last semester grade 2 fall long-term classes. So we asked the student to draw out the main character, who is in front, who is behind, and how we should count the total. Is there anyone that we're double counting? So by drawing this picture out, it helps the student to really visualize about what is going on, and they be able to fully understand, okay, this is what they should be able to do. Okay, and then after they draw it out, they should be able to know how many people are lining up, what operation that we're using to count the total. We are using the addition, and we're able to add them up. And don't forget to subtract the one that is duplicate. So for the word problem in the daily life, it's very important to ask the student to try and be able also to ask them to analyze the important information. And same thing happened with this, actually I put the last question, the question 24 here as in the logical reasoning problem. And this is also a very typical word problem as well, just in another way. So here actually not only involves a lot of people that is going on, and also there's a lot of before and now, and who is in front and who is after. So the student should be able to understand the relationship between different people and putting a clear image and putting them onto a scale, be able to compare who is coming in the front and who is coming in the back. So every single sentence, they should extract a very important message and be able to line them up and transform this word problem into a picture. So really help us to students to understand what is going on without mom and dad's help during the competition. I think it is very important that we be able to encourage a student to not only do a lot of reading, but also in the word problem particularly, and ask them the 3 important factors. Who is the main character, what are they doing, and what is question asking for. So in the daily training for the math competition, or even they just doing a regular math practice, I think that is something that we should be able to focusing on in the daily life. Okay, so back to how to prepare. Okay, and for the Math Kangaroo, I think there are a lot of things that we should be doing. And many students actually come to me previous semester asking me for help about how to prep for the Math Kangaroo. And we already had a lot of similar webinars that's particularly talking about Math Kangaroo and all the specific of prepping. So here I just want to sum it up to 3 points. First of all, Math Kangaroo is a very math application competition. So not like in the school they ask you the question very straightforward. There's often a lot of hidden information as well as a lot of hidden tricks, or it asks the student to apply multiple tricks or multiple steps into one question. So it is very important that testing a student if they have a strong foundation, and also is there anything they're missing in the back. So here I will recommend the student to, or parents, mom and dad, you can help the student to look at the wrong problem that the student did, and to see if that's in any module that they're not familiarized with, or they learned before but they often forgot. So that is something we have to making up the missing knowledge. And also in the lower grade, calculation is still one of the important module, and it's the foundation of among the others. So making sure the student be able to score the calculation and they be able to calculate correctly. Also, the second part is developing the good testing skills and build up the patience and double check. Actually, I will go into details later on to teach a student how to able to do their scratch paper and how they can read the problem. And lastly, learn how to approach the question. Math Kangaroo is something very new, as I mentioned. It's fun, and it's unlike the student probably see them in their daily life. So it's very important they can see different module tests. You can use the resources on the Math Kangaroo websites, or as well as use the previous mock test or the daily exercise that we provided, so the student be able to familiarize how the question is asking and how be able to getting those hidden information. And particularly for Math Kangaroo only, I just want to let you know that Math Kangaroo does not taking the points off. So they don't mark any wrong questions. So please never leave a question blank. We see students, they don't know how to do a problem, they just leave it blank, they never fill in the bubble or select the answer. So even you can let the student know, even they probably don't know how to do it, or they can take an education guess if they can, and never leave a question blank. And also, since this is a very super long exam, especially for younger kids, and building up the patience as well as the habits, and to double check, it is very important. Okay, so I just want to go into a little bit more details for Math Kangaroo taking the exam. So I have parents after the mock exam, they came to me saying, "Oh, Candy, we actually learned this back in your long-term classes last semester," or we did a lot of mock exam before, they got a question correct. Or they say, "Oh, when I ask the student to did the wrong question one more time, they'd be able to get them correct about how come here they got it wrong. Is something going on? Actually, I want to tell you it is because this is the online exam problems. So unfortunately, due to the pandemic, the Think Academy Testing Center is still hosting the competition online. If you register to a testing center that's taking the site on site, that you should be receiving a testing paper, and you will be taking the mock test on their site and filling the bubble sheet. But for majority of the students, that if you register through Think Academy, or if you still decide to take the exam online, that you'll be receiving a link on the day of the exam and be access them and be able to take the exam at home on your computer. So the problem of taking the exam or do anything online for little kids, there's always a couple of things that can go wrong. First is the technical issue, that we have students that I see submitted a work within 5 minutes. Just like for them to take the exam for the real time, they probably wrong click something and they just submitted a work accidentally. So make sure the student know how to operate for the computer and be able to navigate when they're taking the exam online is very important. And second is about writing down the steps. So when you see a question, it doesn't pop out like when you're taking it on a paper. It's going question by question. So you have to read the problem on your computer, and the student have to analyze, oh, what is the most important thing happening? And they also have to copy it down, or if they don't have the habits of writing down steps, they probably just thinking all the calculation in their head and randomly select a problem. So if they're writing down the steps, they're going from computer on their paper and back to the computer. So you can often see students probably copy a number wrong, or they calculated wrong on their scratch paper. So when they fill in back to the computer, there's also the chance for them to make mistakes. So this process actually very testing the student, their patience as well as their attention to details. So it is very important that try to come to the next mock test, or if you are using Math Kangaroo past a real exam paper, try to set up the environment that a student still taking the exam online or on the computer, so they are familiarized with the setting and they still be able to do the practice and look at a computer and write down the important information down to the paper. So that's a process to train. And lastly is about double check. So many parents are telling me that they don't know how to double check, or probably they know, but we know as adults how to double check. But the student probably just look at it down the paper 5 seconds and they already know how to double check. So it's another skill that we have to improve on. So how to improve? Actually, I just want to emphasize on the scratch paper as well as how they be able to double check. First of all, on the left side, this is a scratch paper I received from my students during the exam from the last round. As you can see, she actually tried to write down some steps, and also here, as we can see, she's trying to calculate and trying to double check. However, there's a lot of missing number along the way, because she actually knows what is 4 times 8, and so she doesn't really write it down and she just filled in the answer. However, first, a couple of things about this. She doesn't have a number for the questions. So if she doesn't fill in the number right away, she's gonna forget what is this number for and what question is it for. And secondly, when she go back at the end of the exam to look back, she actually doesn't know what question we're talking about, and she doesn't really know which one that she's writing. Is she calculating the area or she's calculating the parameter? So for this particular scratch paper, she made some good efforts in it, but there's a lot of areas that she can improve. And here, this is more a clear scratch paper. And in the real exam, I would recommend a student to use the line paper. So, or not even in the exam, in the daily practicing for math, I really highly recommend them to using the line paper, so the student know where they're writing. And before they're using the line paper, the parents can even help the student to set things up. For example, to help them in the very beginning stage, help them to write the question number on the side and to tell them this is the first question that you should be writing your steps here. And the second question, you should write your steps here. And then the student need to put in the effort of thinking, what do we know? What is the known information? And they in the online exam setting, it's kind of hard. They cannot really make the underline marks on their computer. So they should copy the main character down to the paper and copy the number and what is that number for. Is it telling us the distance? Is it telling us the speed? Or is it telling us the time, for example? And also write it down what it's asking. And then leave some calculation space and always do the calculation on the right hand side. And then what is the title of calculation? For example, here I can see this is maybe calculating the parameter, and because 7 times 4 may be 4 sides. However, I cannot be sure until she writes parameters here. So it is very important that a student should be able to write down the title. And then lastly, if she has a great habit, circle out the final answers and then matching the final answer back into the question. Okay, I know this is a lot of our ideal way of writing down the scratch paper. However, even in my regular long-term classes, I have over 100 students. Very rarely a student be able to accomplish that, but this is a working process. So when they're little, so really encourage them to write down the steps and be able to help them to do them question by question. It is very, very important. As you can see, many parents come to me and saying, oh, I asked the student to do them one more time, they be able to correct. That's because they slowed down and they started to think and they start to write things down. So once they do that, actually students accomplish more than you would imagine. So I think that is very important that from every single question that the students are doing, they be able to write things down and really, really focusing on their study habits. Also, for some questions, I see great habits is that any question a student is uncertain during the online exam, they can mark the unknown question number here and let themselves know, oh, this is question I had trouble on. So at the end of the exam, I should come back and look at it and to see what is going on. So I think it is very, very important that students know if they have a question that had it wrong, they can come back at the end to double check. Also to talk about double checking, what is double check? So we probably mentioned this a lot of times. So we have to double check and the student said, okay, I did. And then they actually spend 5 seconds looking down to their papers and then they tell you they're done. So when we say double checking, that means take out another sheet of paper. So I often tell my students that are very, very fast to take out another new sheet of paper and redo the question. I will highly recommend for the students that are aiming for very high score or they have a strong foundation in the 0.3 and 0.4 question and they really, really want to score those 5-point hard problems to redo the last 8 questions at least on a new sheet of paper. So they be able to compare notes and to see if they're still getting the same answer. Actually, 75 minutes is really way enough for all the students to take 24 questions. They actually spend a minute when average time span should be 3 minutes per question. So for the student who are aiming for any medals or really want to score the top 1%, they should nail those 5-point questions and to double check those 5-point questions in the end. Okay, and there's only 45 days until the 2022 Math Kangaroo. So it's not like we're still back in 2021 that we have probably 3 to 4 months that a student still can do a lot of things. This only is coming up quickly, only 45 days. I highly recommend you to prep with goals. So if you are only a grade 1 student, this is your first time come into math exam, have fun, okay, and really enjoy the process, be familiarized with everything, and give the student encouragement that they should be able to have fun and try their best. And if this is something that you are having high goals, ambitious for, then for a student that should be really focusing on building and getting all the point 3 and point 4 question correct. And if you're a second grade and this is your second time coming to this competition and you're familiarized with the formats and that is something that you really enjoyed, so this is the time that you should really focusing on the 5-point questions. So for the 5 point, it's getting harder, and also notice for some hidden informations and hints within the question. So for the 5 points, actually they're a hard question, but not hard for saying that's a knowledge point that you never come upon with. Those 5-point question hard just mean there's a lot of different steps and you probably should apply different strategy within one question. So it's very flexible, and that's the fun of math, right? So it is very important for the 5-point question, and if you are really aiming for the medal, you should only everyone should score at least 90 points above to secure a medal. And often see students scoring 86 and above 90. They definitely will be at the top of their rank. And also for 5 points, it's very important that following the previous testing strategy to write down the steps as well as for double check. Okay, to give you a little bit more details, and today is the February 1st, the first day of February, and you can look back to the wrong question that you did, not with this past round mock test, also the previous 2 rounds as well, or if you haven't tried the previous 2 rounds, give it a chance, and to review the wrong question. What's there to review? First, is that something repeating module that you are having problem with? Some students have a very clear trend. They are very bad with geometry. Then that is the module that you should be highly focusing on in the at least next week or the next 20 or 30 days. And if you don't have a clear module, then we have to start thinking for those modules or the wrong question that you had. Is it because that you made a few mistakes? Or is there any module or any knowledge point that you are not familiar yourself with? So those are something that you should really be focusing on, and to review all the wrong questions and study with a particular module and particular points to really make yourself familiarized with the question as well as the format. And second, at the end of this week, actually we have our Think Academy Advanced Camp short-term classes coming up. So this is 3 lesson questions. We are only focusing on the 5-point challenging question. This short-term classes is for students who are interested on aiming high goals or want to challenge themselves or want to expand their learning horizons on some different math testing skills. And you're very welcome to join for the short-term classes, and I'll have the syllabus for you later. And at the mid of the February, we are gonna start having the daily 5-point exercise, and you can join us on WeChat as well as in WhatsApp to participate together every day, and we'll be focusing on the daily 5-point exercise to help the student familiarize with the 5-point question. And lastly, we have one more round of mock exam in the round 4, which will be on the March the 11th, the week before Math Kangaroo real test. So for this one is pretty much just the end of it to help the student to boosting up their activities, to let them know, okay, the math competition is coming up, let's just take a final stretch and to see what is going on. And for the last round of the math mock test, I hope the student are really using the time and setting the environment to close to the real exam setting, and be able to write down the steps and be able to really taking the mock seriously. And finally, in the end, at the end of this line, that will be the day of Math Kangaroo mock testing day. So for that, you'll be able to really participate and enjoy. Okay, so there are some free resources that you can use. As I mentioned, use the Math Kangaroo past exam papers. So due to the copyright, Think Academy does not provide any past testing papers. So if you would like to see the past testing papers, that you can purchase them on the Math Kangaroo USA official website. So here there's a code for you to scan and going to the official website, and you can purchase the previous past exam paper. So if this is the first time that you're using the past exam paper, I highly recommend you to purchase to the closer year, not back to the 1998 years, probably still 2018, 2019, and 2020. So it's closer to the real exam, and also use the time wisely, use the past paper wisely. That's it. If you did buy a past testing paper, and really set the testing environments. Okay, so if you are signed up for an online exam setting, do the exam online. So use the computer, use the scratch paper, and let a student fill in a bubble sheet or write down the steps on the paper, so they'd be able to practice and they be familiarized them to do the computer, paper, and computer setting. And for the Think Academy resource, as I mentioned, we have the mock test round 4 on the March 11th. Also in the mid-February, we'll have our daily practice. So if you have our WeChat, or if you're not in the Math Kangaroo WeChat group yet, please scan the WeChat code, and then you can leave your name and the grade that you would like to join, and we'll be inviting you into the WeChat particular leveled WeChat group for you to receive the daily practice when we are coming up in the mid-February. And if you are in the WhatsApp user, and you can just decide to join us on WhatsApp as well. So both channels will have the same resources. Please just join one. Do not duplicate your social media. Then just join the channel that you would like to join. And we have both channels having the sharing the resource. So do not get worried that you don't receive the same material, and you definitely will. Okay. And if you are the student who are liking to take the challenge for the 5-point, as I mentioned, Think Academy also have an advancement camp for the short-term classes as well that is coming up this upcoming week. So it's a 3-lesson classes that we're focusing on the 5 points. So in these 3 lessons, as you can see, I put in a little agenda and schedule here. And each lesson is 1.5 hours. So total for 3 lessons, 1 class per week. So we'll be solving some real exam questions, and we're teaching you about the testing strategies for that particular skills. And we're providing you with more homework practice coming with your textbooks. And also that this will be only available on our platform, available in different devices. We also have the playback available for the particular paying class. So if you are having strong foundations in the point 3 and point 4 questions, and this is the second time that you're taking the exam, or if you are very interested to see more challenging questions and see some testing skills and method, really glad that you'll be able to help us and join us for the class. And you can directly sign up the class here. And the first class will be on the February the 12th, and 3 lessons every class per week. Okay, so for any Math Kangaroo related questions, please don't hesitate to leave us for any information or question that you might have in the WeChat group or on the WhatsApp, or if you want to contact us directly, and you are really welcome to, and ask anything Academy teacher the resources that you want, and we are really happy to help, and we'll provide any resources that we have to help the students to succeed. Okay, and lastly, there's only 45 days as I mentioned, and do not get scared, and please go review all the steps that I mentioned before and prep with goals, and most importantly, and let the student have fun during the math exam. Okay, so that'll be all, and thank you for taking the time on a Tuesday evening, and thank you, and we'll see you soon at Think Academy.